Hello, this is a very short review of this thing, which is a YASHICA Electro 35. These things are brilliant. This one's a GX, which is a really tiny little one, and I love it. I got this for 16 quid off eBay, and it cost more than that to post it. In this review, I'm gonna compare it to this. Hooray! It's a Leica. The reason I'm comparing it to this, which is an absurd comparison obviously, there's two reasons. One is it's going to slightly annoy Leica fanboys, and the second reason is that this was always called the poor man's Leica, and I'm a rich man because I have both, but I'm not really, but my dad was into cameras, so I have used Leicas for some years, and I'm going to just compare them a little bit. Obviously it's an unfair comparison. Yes, this thing's lovely build quality, blah blah blah. The technology is not really comparable. Obviously this is like 70s, 80s technology, and this is like 50s technology. The rangefinder in it, this is just like completely different. Okay, this thing. Wait, am I in focus? Not really. In focus? Out of focus. Kind of in focus. The Electro 35 is such a great little series of cameras. I'd really recommend them. They are little, they've got cool little fixed lenses, they're quick to focus, and they just feel great in the hand, and they're cool, like, oh, carrying around town, hey, I'm just out with my cool little camera. It's that kind of like lovely little camera. Looking through the viewfinder, it's really clear compared to the rubbish. I mean, if you use Leica 3, I had a 3F, and what's this one? Can't remember. Oh, M2 this one's actually one of the better viewfinders, and it's almost impossible to see when you're trying to focus, but that's because it's 50s technology, so you can't really blame it. But the viewfinder in the YASHICA is brilliant. It's fantastic. So I don't think it's a very fair comparison to call it poor man's Leica. Really, I think that's a really backhanded compliment, and I think actually it's a YASHICA. It's really good. The reason that I made the go with the YASHICA in the first place is that I had a twin lens reflex YASHICA called a Mat 124G, and I used that on professional jobs and stuff. It was like crazy sharp. It was really good. So that encouraged me about YASHICA glass, and it's been borne out in the Electro 35. It's just the glass is so good. The photos have just rendered so well and so sharp. The only thing that I would say is obviously because you're not sure what shutter speed it's choosing. That's the downside. So that will annoy. I think that will annoy amateur photographers. I think probably the real beginner photographers will love it because beginner photographers don't care what shutter speed it's at, and professional photographers will love it because they know what this is choosing, right? Do you know what I mean? So the beginners will love it, the real pros will love it because you know what it's choosing, whereas it's the middle ground people, the kind of amateur photographers, the sort of hobbyists, the quite good photographers will get annoyed by it because you're not sure what shutter speed it's choosing. The way to get around that is to use it more and learn what it's choosing, and that will teach you why it's choosing what it's choosing. As long as it's not broken, obviously. What I do with this thing is I put a variable ND on the front, so that means if I'm going out in sun and I want it to be wide open, I'll shut it right down, I'll just black it right down, and then if it's a bit overcast, I'll open it up a bit more to let a bit more light in, and I just play it by ear, and then as you're shooting, you can just listen to it, you can hear what it's choosing, and I think that whole process really teaches you. It taught me, you know, I think that's a good thing about these kind of cameras is as you use them, they teach you a bit about light, and they teach you a bit about slowing down a bit, and just loving the situation that you're in, and learning from it. Final thing about this, don't use foil in the battery thing. There's lots of stuff online about, oh, you can use foil in the battery thing. Don't do that. So tip number one is use a variable ND on the front. It's just like a little, they're very cheap, and that will mean that you'll be able to shoot in all kinds of lighting situations, and what you're aiming for with a variable ND is to get it in that sweet spot of shutter speed. So I aim for about 1/200th of a second, so when I click, well, I'm listening, and I don't want it to be too slow, and I don't want it to be at the very limit of what it can do, because then it's probably going to be a bit overexposed. So that's tip number one. Tip number two is, in your battery compartment, don't use foil. Use a spring. The reason not to use foil, there's two reasons. First is foil isn't springy. Once it crunches down, it stays crunched down, and you don't want that because it's, as you're using this during the day, this crunches and crunches, crunches and gets out of the way, and eventually you've got a dodgy connection. It won't actually connect anymore, so it's unreliable. The second reason not to use foil is that if it works its way round, which this can do, then you've got an electrical fire. Hooray, an electrical fire! Thanks for the advice, YouTubers. Don't do that. So don't do that. I haven't done that myself, but I'm, you know, I've got engineering qualifications, and I can tell you, don't do that. Although it's a very easy way of having a kind of quick fix. I think that's why people recommend it. So just find a spring. I've got some manual focus, so it's never going to focus, but find a spring that's roughly the right size. I found this spring that was too big, so I snipped it in half and shoved it in there. So a spring will be a much safer way of connecting those two things. This, by the way, this is on the GX. Don't do this with all of them. They're all slightly different battery compartments, but on the GX do this. Spring on that side, and then on this side you can combine the voltage. So if you've got two batteries that are 1.5 volts each, then you can replace them with one battery that has 3 volts. So what you're looking for is the same overall voltage. So this thing that I replaced it with is a DL something. This is in the UK. DL 1/3N. There you go. Exciting. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah, so it's a 3-volt battery, DL1/3N. Is that what it said? Anyway, look it up. You just need a 3-volt battery that will fit in that little compartment, and it does perfectly. So there you go. So number one, it's brilliant, and it is comparable to the Leica, but it should be applauded in its own right. Number two, use variable ND for different lighting situations, and number three, don't use foil unless you want to have an electrical fire in your bag, in your camera bag on your back. Ow, it's hot. Why is it hot? Why is my back burning, mummy? Electrical fire, that's what it is, because you get your advice on YouTube, which is just a really bad idea. But here you are, getting more advice on YouTube, and so the horrible cycle continues. For all you know, I might be some horrible serial killer trying to advise everyone to use springs, evil springs. Anyway, take YouTube advice with a pinch of salt, I say, but try it, definitely try it. Leicas are great, they're lovely, aren't they? But it's just, you know, if you've only ever used Leica because you think they're the best of the best of the best, it's a bit like BMW drivers who only ever drive BMWs. What are you doing? What are you doing? Brand loyalty, it's a mystery, isn't it? Mystery. It's just a toolbox, just use it. Use it. And they've all got upsides and downsides. Oh, I remember the day when blah blah blah. The end.